Hi, it's me Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe my channel and visit my Patreon page, link in the description. Things had been changing all along, of course. My breasts had started to develop and I looked different in a dress than I did when I was in junior high. I went from a size 32 AAA bra when I was 12 to a size 32A bra as a freshman in high school. It may not seem like much to increase 2 cup sizes, but at 14 everything mattered. I begged and pleaded with mommy to let me wear padded bras, but she always smiled and told me to wait, that I'd be wearing a bigger bra soon enough and there was no need to rush anything. A few months later, I was thrilled when mommy said that I seemed to be outgrowing my old bras. She measured me and I almost cried for joy when she told me that I was now a size 33A. Since they didn't make bras in odd sizes, I got to buy new bras in a size 34AA. I didn't care if my new bras were a smaller cup size. All that mattered was that I was wearing a size 34 bra. I wasn't a little girl anymore. By the time I was 16, I was a full B cup with a cute shape. Boys had been falling all over themselves to date me now that mommy said I was old enough. I heard lots of movies. I didn't see many since my dates and I were too busy necking and rarely had to walk anywhere since some cute boy would show up with a car. I didn't own a single pair of cotton panties. All of mine were silky bikini styles that matched my bras. I had a closet full of gorgeous dresses and drawers overflowing with the tight jeans that looked so good with a pair of heels. All of my dating didn't stop me from keeping my promise to mommy to be a good girl though. I never dated if I had a test coming up and always had my homework finished before I spent the rest of the evening gabbing to my girlfriends on the phone. When I went on dates, I had a wonderful time, but I made it clear to the boy that he wouldn't get a second date if he tried anything that I didn't like. I wasn't going to get a reputation that would upset mommy. I was determined that she would always be proud of me and wouldn't have any reason to make me be a boy again. I met Kenny at the end of my senior year. My girlfriends and I were at the usual Saturday night dance flirting with cute boys when I saw him. Tall, blonde hair, broad shoulders, his smile seemed to be calling to me. Who's he? I whispered to Mandy, trying not to be too obvious and staring at the hunk across the room. Kenny Hodges, Mandy giggled. He just transferred here a couple of weeks ago. Rumor is that he's unattached. Can you believe a guy could be that dreamy and still not be taken? Look at that doll, I sighed. He's got everything I want in a boy. I wonder what it would be like to be held in those arms? Nikki asked. Just my luck to have a boyfriend. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. He was standing there alone with no one to talk to. He looks awfully lonely, I said more to myself than anything. He probably doesn't have any friends here yet. Certainly no girlfriends, Mandy added thoughtfully. I'll bet that the right girl could take that sad look right out of his big blue eyes. You can tell that he's got blue eyes from here? I asked in amazement. How could you get past that sexy-looking body to bother with his eyes? Mandy broke into a fit of laughter. He's not that sexy, he's very sweet, but not that sexy. Not that sexy? I was stunned. Nikki didn't seem blind. How could she miss that gorgeous hunk of a guy? Are you? I wanted to ask if she had lost all of her marbles, but suddenly I noticed Kenny staring at me. He's looking at me, I whispered frantically. Oh my God, he's looking at me. Before I could say anything else, he started to walk towards me. My dream guy had noticed me and was headed my way. Now he's coming over here, I whispered, trying not to seem too anxious, but afraid another girl might grab him before he got to me. He wants to meet you, Nikki giggled from behind me. He's been asking about you for the last couple of weeks. My dream guy was headed my way because he wanted to meet me? He'd been asking about me? I was all confused. You know him? I asked, not bothering to turn around so I didn't lose track of him in the crowd of kids. And you're willing to give him to me? He's my future stepbrother, she laughed. Mandy's got a boyfriend and I can't do anything with him, so he's all yours. I'll take really good care of him, I promise. I giggled as he got close. And you can wear any of my outfits, anytime. Nikki did the introduction, but I didn't hear anything she said after Kenny said hello. He had a way of pronouncing Jamie as though talking about a piece of art. When he asked me to dance, the strong, intelligent, young woman in me went to lunch, leaving a helpless little girl behind. I somehow managed to smile and nod my head before I let him take my hand for a slow dance. I suddenly felt so safe and secure, just like when I used to hold Mommy's hand when we went to the mall. When Kenny put his arm around me, I wanted to melt right into him. He made me feel different than any boy I had ever danced with before. My breasts tingled whenever I pressed against his chest, and for some strange reason I wanted to rip my panties off and let him do anything he wanted to me. I just knew I could never let him go. I didn't feel like a girl around Kenny. I felt like a grown woman. "I've heard so much about you, Jamie," Kenny told me as we danced. "I saw you with Nikki one day and I just had to find out all about you. My sister said you were the smartest girl in the whole school. I already knew you had to be the prettiest, so I pestered her until she spilled her guts." Kenny went on to tell me that we shared many common interests. We were both interested in science fiction. We both loved to sit and look at the stars and night sky. He had a grade point average as high as mine, and we both loved to dance. I was completely tongue-tied. This guy was so interested in me that he took the time to find out everything he could about me. No boy had ever done anything like that before. "Nikki forgot to tell me that you can't talk." I looked up at the most beautiful blue eyes that seemed to light up as he smiled. "I'm sorry, Kenny," I said when I finally remembered how to speak. "I'm just so flattered. No one's ever been that interested in me before." Kenny pulled me close and I started to get those feelings in my breasts again. Those eyes lit up again as his voice played the most melodious tones I'd ever heard. "That's a shame, Jamie. Any guy who wouldn't be interested in a girl who's got looks and brains should be taken out and horsewhipped." I felt silly listening to him talk that way, but I didn't want him to stop. "That's pretty harsh, don't you think, Kenny?" His name seemed to roll off my tongue. "For mistreating a pretty girl like you? Not harsh enough." He laughed. "I don't really think you can consider that mistreating me," I replied coyly. "Just because a boy doesn't take the time to find out what I like. If he can't take the time for you, who would he take the time for?" Kenny's soft voice made me want to cuddle up even closer. I laid my head on his chest and smiled up at him. "You're sweet. Has any girl ever told you that?" "Never. In my old school they seemed to prefer the Neanderthal type, you know, the knuckle draggers from the football team." His face had a very sad look that made me feel sorry for him. How could a girl not be interested in this sweet boy? I shook my head in disagreement. "I've dated a football player or two. They weren't that bad." Kenny thought for a bit. "No," he said. "I guess they're not all that bad. I'm just tired of girls who say that they want a sensitive boy yet only date knuckle draggers." "I'd be happy to take a sensitive boy, Kenny," I told him in the sweetest, most sincere voice I could manage. Of course he'd have to be really sensitive, not just pretending so that I'd go out with him. "I can prove that I'd be that kind of boy, Jamie," Kenny assured me as he held me tight. "Would you give me a chance?" I couldn't resist his voice and looks any longer. I tipped my head back, stood on tiptoes and gave him a kiss on the cheek. "I think you'll pass with flying colors, Kenny," I whispered softly. As the song ended, he smiled, leaned down and met my lips with a kiss that sent bolts of electricity through my body. "Wow!" we exclaimed in unison as we parted lips. "That was great." It dawned on us what had happened, causing us to break into a fit of laughter. We walked off the floor with our arms around each other's waists. "Looks like you two hit it off," Nikki laughed as she ran towards us. "Take good care of my brother, Jamie." She smiled and turned to Kenny. "Hurt my friend, and I'll cut you into little pieces and feed you to my dog." I pulled Kenny back without thinking. "He'd never hurt me, Nikki," I smiled. "I can tell." Nikki smiled at me, then at Kenny. "I was joking, Jamie," she laughed. "My new brother here is probably the sweetest boy in the world, and I can't imagine any girl that he'd take better care of than you." Kenny and I spent the rest of the evening dancing and getting to know each other better. Actually, I had to get to know him. He'd already pumped Nikki for everything she knew about me, from our days playing Barbies to how I did on my last report card. Kenny's dad was about to marry Nikki's mom, and they'd be living right here with Nikki, which meant that Kenny and I could see each other as often as we liked. One more reason to spend time at my best friend's house. Kenny had a way of holding me while we danced that set me on fire. He was a perfect gentleman, but the feel of my hand in his and his arm tightly around my waist as we danced made me unbelievably horny. Several times he'd smile at me, then lean over for a quick kiss, which made me nearly wet my panties in delight. Finally, fearing that he'd never get around to asking, I popped the question. "A lot of the kids like to spend time talking on the bleachers. I told him with a promising smile. Smart boy that he was, I didn't have to go into any more detail. He squeezed my hand and let me lead him out to the bleachers. I can't believe you know everything about me. I giggled like a silly little girl as I stared into his eyes. I'm really amazed that you'd go through all that trouble to get to know me. You're worth it, Jamie, Kenny whispered as he drew me close. I couldn't look away from those gorgeous blue eyes of his and didn't resist as he lifted my chin and kissed me. As our lips touched, I shook involuntarily. Are you cold? He asked, worried that my sleeveless dress might not be keeping me warm enough. We can go back inside if you'd like. That's okay, I giggled. I'd rather stay here with you. Will you keep me warm if I do get cold? Kenny smiled, then drew me in for a kiss that set me on fire. I felt his tongue probing my lips, so I parted them to allow us to get better acquainted. I lost all track of time. It seemed like the kiss was never ending, which was just the way I wanted it. Snuggled safely into Kenny's strong embrace, I was safe, secure, and rapidly falling in love. After an hour of letting our tongues get to know each other, we reluctantly headed back to the dance. Kenny kissed me again and led me like a little girl back out to dance. He held me tight and told me that I was pretty and that he couldn't wait to see me again. With my heart pounding and my breasts tingling, I told Kenny that I'd give him my phone number. I already have that, he laughed. Got it from Nikki a couple of weeks ago. You've had my phone number for weeks and never called. I did my best to act hurt, but Kenny just laughed and gave me another kiss. I was afraid you wouldn't go out with me, he sheepishly admitted. You're so pretty. I figured you must have had a boyfriend. This guy was a definite keeper. Shy, sweet, oh so lovable, and his kisses peeled the polish off my toenails. I took his hand and squeezed it as tightly as I could. I do now. I smiled. Kenny was thrilled. He grabbed me, pulled me onto his lap, and gave me a kiss that was better than any he'd given me before. I can't believe how lucky I am. I have the smartest and prettiest girl in the whole school as my girlfriend. I couldn't believe that Kenny, though, that he was lucky. I was sitting on the lap of the cutest guy I'd ever met. He was everything a girl could ever ask for in a boy, and he was mine. No girl could be luckier than that. Kenny walked me home and gave me another one of his toe-curling kisses before leaving. I made him promise to call me the next day so that we could go out somewhere. I couldn't wait to show off my boyfriend to every girl I knew. I was floating as I walked into the house. Mommy, of course, was waiting for me, and it must have been obvious that something had happened. Looks like someone's had a good time, she teased as I straightened out my arm, causing my purse to fall to the table. I'm in love, Mommy. I gushed with joy. I'm totally, completely, positively, absolutely in love with the most wonderful boy in the whole world. Mommy guided me into the kitchen and prepared some hot chocolate. Who is this wonderful boy, if I might be so bold as to ask? He's not just a wonderful boy, Mommy. I quickly corrected her lest she misunderstand about her future son-in-law. He is the most wonderfulest boy in the world, and he's all mine. And does this boy have a name? Kenny, I did my best to make it sound as wonderful as he made my name sound, but I know I feel far short. Isn't it the perfect name for the sweetest boy on earth? Mom served our hot chocolate and patiently listened to me rave about Kenny. I couldn't say enough nice things about him. He was everything I always dreamed about in a boy and much, much more. He's the one, Mommy, I told her with absolute conviction. I'm going to marry him and make him the happiest guy in the world. If you're his girlfriend, I'm sure he's already that happy, Jamie, Mommy told me. But how did this all happen? I poured out the whole story of Nikki setting me up with her stepbrother, and how he had gotten Nikki to tell him all about me, and how nice it felt when we danced together. I made sure that Mommy knew he was a nice boy, not the kind of boy who might be mean to me or do anything bad to me. My Kenny would never be like that. Is he a good kisser? She asked bluntly. He looked like it from his goodbye kiss. You were watching? I was horrified. I didn't want Mommy to think that I was the kind of girl that would do anything wrong with a boy. I didn't plan on it, she laughed. But it was getting late, so I looked out the window and I saw you walking with a boy. I was about to close the curtains when I saw him pull you close and kiss you. That must have shaken you up. I'm not a little girl anymore, Mommy, I explained huffily. I've been kissed before, you know. Not like that you haven't. Mommy immediately set me straight. That wasn't the kind of kiss a boy gives a girl for dancing with him. That boy is serious about you. I know, Mommy, isn't it wonderful? I closed my eyes and saw my Kenny's face in front of me. Those blue eyes, his strong-looking chin, and those lips that gave me such a thrill. Mommy stared at me with a funny expression on her face. "Are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into, Jamie?" she asked. "I mean, it sounds as though you're getting very serious in a hurry. Maybe too serious, too quickly." I couldn't understand what Mom was worried about. I mean, I dated a lot of guys before, so it wasn't as though Kenny was my first crush or anything like that. Couldn't she understand that I was in love? "You have to trust me, Mommy." I begged her to understand how important Kenny was to me. "I'm not a little girl anymore." "You're not any kind of a girl, Jamie. That's what worries me." Mommy's words hit me like a cold, wet towel in the face, dashing my dreams of a life with Kenny. I had forgotten about being a boy myself, a boy several years older than the one I had fallen in love with. All of the wonderful feelings I had experienced and all of my hard work trying to convince Mommy that I really was a girl were floating down the drain, and I was powerless to stop them. She was going to make me be a boy again. I just knew it. "You're going to have to be very careful, honey." Mommy's words began to drift into my sorrow-filled world. "You can't afford to get too carried away with this young man and have him find out about the real you. I expect you to remember to act like a lady at all times, even though I'm sure you'd love to let him take you and have his way with you." I shook my head. Could I actually be hearing what I thought I was hearing? I looked up to Mommy, smiling. "I was a young girl once too, Jamie. I understand what years of female hormones have done to you. All I ask is that you be careful. You've come too far to lose everything now." "But what about?" I looked down at my lap. I didn't want to have to acknowledge that I was really a boy. "You've waited this long. I don't think a little while longer will hurt. I think you need to take a little time to experience your first love as a young woman. If things work out, then I don't see any reason for Jimmy to return, do you?" I jumped out of my chair and rushed to Mommy. "I don't think he'll ever come back," I said through my tears. "I'll find a way to make it work, but I know that I'm going to marry Kenny someday. I just know it." Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.